Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're very privileged to have Rick Hill, a 40-year cancer survivor, here with us at the 41st Annual Cancer Control Society Convention. He's going to tell us his story, and it's a very interesting one because he was at the Oasis of Hope Hospital just about the time that my wife and I were married, and she used to work there. So we have a certain connection, historical connection in that way. As I mentioned, Rick is a cancer survivor, and he is also the admission director at the Oasis of Hope Hospital, and I don't want to take any more of your time. Rick, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. How many of you would rather be here than the best hospital in town? Okay. We're on the same page. Somebody said to me the other day, we heard that you're the oldest living laetrile relic in the world. And I said, that is not true. I am the second oldest living relic, actually. There's one lady who was there in 1972, and she's still living, thank God. But I was there in 1974. In fact, if my memory serves me correct, I spoke at this convention of your third year. So I had more hair then. Did I mention that? Okay, good. My story started in 1974. I was at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And I had embryonal-cell carcinoma, which had spread to my lymphatic system. And they operated on my neck, they found it. They operated on my feet, they found it. And they said, well, you know, you've got cancer just everywhere. And so you need to invite your family in, say goodbye, decide who gets a gold watch, and it's just over for you. There's really not much we can do. And that was the weekend that a guy mailed me a letter for 13-cent stamp and said, there's some people in Tijuana that want to do therapy with nutrition. And so my family gathered that night. The dog was laying at the foot of the fireplace. And I stood up and I said, I'm thinking about leaving the Mayo Clinic, and I'm thinking about going to Tijuana. I learned more swear words in the next 5 minutes than I learned growing up on the streets of Detroit. They were furious with me because they said, you're committing suicide if you think you're going to leave the citadel of modern medicine and you're going to go to Tijuana and get well. You're more stupid than we thought you were. And that was the compliment of the evening that I got. Boy, they were upset. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think that it mattered because that's what I look like after 10 and a half hours of surgery at the Mayo Clinic. I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of shape where you literally had just a few days to live and it was just a nightmare. But I got to Tijuana. Here's a letter from the Mayo Clinic stating that I actually did have stage 3 embryonal-cell, high-grade embryonal-cell carcinoma. And the reason I show you that letter because I started lecturing. I testified for a Senate investigation committee on Capitol Hill. I went any church, anybody that would listen to me, I got up and told this story. They finally got a lady from the American Cancer Society to shadow me whenever I had a booking. And the next day in the paper, she would get up and say, I don't think he had cancer in the first place. So I wrote the Mayo Clinic and said, I am hiring an attorney. You misdiagnosed me. I never had it in the first place. Overnight, I got this letter. And my slides are preserved in paraffin so that any medical doctor that wants to look can check out and see if, yeah, the guy was sick after all. I really did have it. That's one of the articles that ran. You see the county ACS, that's American Cancer Society. Can you guess what organization I have never contributed money to? Take a guess. I can read it from here. It says, as for that testimony offered, it is possible that those offering it are the 2% of cancer victims who experience natural remission, or who did not indeed have it after all. Don't you love it? So I got to Oasis and they said, you've got to change your life. I said, how does that work? They said, first of all, you got to stop eating bad food. I grew up in Detroit. McDonald's. My mother was born on Sand Mountain, Alabama. She fried everything in lard. Bless her heart. She could fry Jell-O and make it better. And they started telling me, you got to eat things that I wouldn't even be willing to step in as a teenager. I mean, it was like green, squishy things. And I did not blend. The first health food store I went in my life was in San Diego, California. I walked in and I heard Ravi Shankar music playing in the background. I was the only one in the store wearing underwear. I saw these people filching food out of barrels and saying things like, oh, wow, I can feel it. The only thing I could feel is, how soon can I get out of this store? I didn't blend very well. Maybe you don't blend very well. Some people come to me and they say, you were so brave. It was the early part of the movement and you left the Mayo Clinic. You're just so... Are you kidding? I was scared to death. I kissed my wife goodbye and I said, this is a one-way trip. So if somebody sticks their finger in your face and say, you have to believe first before it'll work. I don't know. I wasn't sure it was going to work. I was petrified. But I was not as afraid of what they would do as what the Mayo Clinic would do. And the way I knew that is one night I pulled all the hemovacs out, all the needles out, and I went for a walk down chemotherapy row. And I went into the room and I sat down next to the patient. I said, my name's Rick. I'm headed for here next week. Let me ask you just one question. If you had it to do over, would you take this chemotherapy? To a person. They said no. How smart do you have to be to buy something nobody that bought it wants? It's not rocket science, you know. They said, we want you to detox your body. I said, how do you do that? They said, well, it's a lot like flushing the radiator in your car. I said, well, I know how to do that. I got a 57 Ford with a Hearst floor shift and slicks. And I do drain the radiator off. And they said, how do you do that? I said, well, I put the hose in the top, undo the bottom. When it flushes clear, I lay rubber out of the parking lot. They said, that is so good you know that because that's exactly what we want to do. I said, where does the hose go? Ladies and gentlemen, I have done hundreds of colonics, and I've hated them all. But I do them, because if you're not pooping, you're not well. People say, not me, you don't understand my genetics. My family goes once a week. I do a watermelon fast. Now, I go round and round with Dr. Contreras about this. He says it's too high glycemic. I know, but I weighed 121 pounds when I was there. There was nowhere to go. And if I tried to fast on water, I got these huge headaches, and I'd shake. And I got my champion juicer out, and I ran the watermelon through it, and I drank it. And 3 days a week, I did a watermelon fast. And on the fourth day, I did a colonic. And then the other 3 days, I ate 80% raw. Not very sexy. Not a lot of fun, but I've got 6 grandkids and 1 ugly dog today. If you'd like 40 more years, you got to do some of the stuff I did. I took lots of food supplements. People hate taking pills. Who is that guy? Who can tell me? Soupy Sales. Remember when he'd take the on camera and then when it hit his stomach, they'd shake the camera and all the kids would fall? That's where I learned to take food supplements. And I take 15 to 20 of these things a day because even the good food that I buy was picked too long ago, shipped too far, stored too long, and unless I'm careful, cooked to death. Yes or no? Yes. People say, well, I don't, it just makes expensive urine. Ugh. I stopped eating gluten in 2004. I'm not going to defend all this, but I'll tell you what, that was my blood test on 11/15/204. I quit eating gluten. It took 6 weeks to get it out of my system, but boy, did I feel better. And Dr. Contreras says that's because gluten causes inflammation. And inflammation is at the root. Let me say that again, my voice just changed. Is at the root of most cancers. Exercise. Today, I walked 2 miles, 1 mile uphill, about a 12% grade, and 1 mile downhill with the fur face. Harvard Medical School, the Harvard Medical School, this is not some naturopath. The Harvard Medical said that of breast cancer patients who exercise 3 to 5 hours a week cut their chances of dying in half. If I went to you and you've got cancer and I said to you, would you invest 2 or 3 hours a week if it would cut your chances of dying by 50%? How would you answer that question? You can't get people off the divan. You can't get them to quit watching TV and take a walk. I exercise. Everything I did to get well was easy to do, but ladies and gentlemen, if it is easy to do, it is also easy not to do. Here's what I believe. It must be more than 60 or 70% of the patients that leave Oasis of Hope are off of their diet within the first year. How do I know? Because I've talked to these people. They get discouraged and they quit. Here's what I want for you. I want for you what I had. I've had 40 years of beautiful health. And it's available, but it's not available without being really into the program. Dr. Contreras wrote a book. I want you to buy it. He's downstairs at the booth. Get down there. He's cut the price to $10 instead of the $18 it usually is. And he'll sign it for you. And I wrote a book called The Cancer Conundrum. It's not rocket science. I don't know what he was talking about. But it's funny. And it'll encourage you so that you don't quit. If you buy this, I'll give you one of these. Thank you.